This past weekend, the Syrian government announced that a ceasefire deal had been struck with the Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces, but that agreement proved to be short-lived as military attacks by the Syrian government reportedly resumed over the past couple of days. Now, there's questions as to what that means. Some say that these forces have not entered those villages. Kurdish officials and allies worry that President Trump is turning his back on the SDF, a longtime U.S. ally in counterterrorism operations against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, ISIS. So what could the president's support for the new Syrian government mean for religious minorities in that country? Joining me now to discuss this, Nadine Maenza, former chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. She served with me on the commission. She is presently co-chair of the International Religious Freedom Roundtable and board chair of the Institute for Global Engagement. Nadine, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so lay out for us. We were discussing this last week with another think tank expert on this, but what's the latest? What's unfolding right now in northeast Syria?
So as you explained, the Syrian forces have decided to claim northeast Syria and to force it, integrate it into the Syrian government, saying that their negotiations had failed with the Northeast, which actually they never actually had any conversations about how to integrate the government in. It was always about how to integrate the SDF in. So they decided to go ahead and take it by force as they were entering. Even CENTCOM, Central Command, the U.S. military told them to stop, and they continued. So as they did, they took all the Arab areas. We saw videos online of all sorts of atrocities against some of the Kurdish forces. We've seen videos of beheadings that included women. We've seen the ISIS flag be put over Raqqa. We saw some executions on video. So they haven't even gotten, at this point, they went through the Arab areas, took the Arab areas, and the SDF really did fall back to the Kurdish majority areas. And it's important to understand ththese Kurdish majority areas are rich with religious minorities: Christians, Yazidis, Zoroastrians, Circassians. We have Alawites, Andrews, and a wide range of different ethnicities as well. So this is a very vulnerable area. And so right now they are in negotiations. They're saying they have a ceasefire right now they've agreed to, and that they're discussing how to integrate it in. But as that's happening, as we speak, they've still surrounded Kobanis. They're still fighting. They're still fighting at Hasaka. So instead of having a ceasefire that's working right now, they just continue to attack these Kurdish areas, putting them at risk.
So there's a couple of reasons I believe we should be concerned about this. Number one, you made reference to the religious freedom that is in that northeast portion of Syria. This is something that has taken root. It's one of the few places outside of Israel in the Middle East that there's been a functioning government that has actually represented or respected, I should say, religious freedom. That began to teeter a little bit after the first Trump administration, when U.S. forces were pulled out of that region. What role has Turkey played in destabilizing this area?
So Turkey is behind all of this, of course. In fact, these attacks have happened with Turkish drones. There have been Turkish planes in the air, although most of it have been drone attacks, but dropping bombs. It's important to understand that Syrian security forces, I've already just talked about the atrocity they've committed this week, but we also know of the massacres that so many of them were involved in against the Alawites, against the Druze. And they should not be in charge of providing security or governance to Yazidi or Christian villages in the Northeast, or Kurdish villages. And so what the leaders of Northeast Syria are trying to negotiate how to integrate in a way that preserves that religious freedom that you talked about, that keeps local police and local administrators, so somebody from their own community, as the mayor or as the co-chair. Right now the co-chair is a man and a woman and the different ethnicities and religions as part of a council, and they want to keep that council. I was up near Latakia in August, and I visited all these Christian villages, and I stumbled upon the fact that every single mayor was from Idlib or Hayat Tel al-Sham's headquarters, or from HTS. And then I found out all the municipal buildings were no longer staffed by any of the Christians in the village. They used to work in the municipal building. They were all from Idlib, all from HTS. Started checking around further. All of the Arab areas are from HTS. in Idlib. And so now, just a couple of days ago, after they took Raqqa, they put a new governor in place, and of course, he's with HTS. And so, what's going to happen? What they want is they're not asking for a ceasefire; they're asking for a surrender, and Ambassador Barak, who's a part of this negotiation, seems to also be pushing them towards a surrender of letting the Syrian security forces come in and take over these villages and take over the governance and take over the security. And we have to say that cannot be possible if we're going to protect these religious minorities.
Well, the history of what has happened so far under this government would say you can't believe what they're saying. You have to look at what they've done.
Exactly. Just look at the history.
So this is really the true test of the new president of Syria, is that if they will allow this region that has been self-governing, autonomous for quite some time, will they allow them to continue to do that, or will they, as you've already pointed out, what they've done in the other regions, replace them? 30 seconds, Nadine, final thoughts.
Yeah, what we need to be standing up for and asking the president, asking Secretary Rubio, is to make sure that these forces do not enter these Kurdish, Christian, Yazidi, religious minority, ethnic minority areas, but they can integrate in under the Ministry of Interior. It may not be a perfect environment, but be a way to help keep them safe. And whatever happens here is going to be a precedent also for Sweden. Right. And so if they invade and take everything now, we're going to keep having war. This is the only way Syria can be successful. And this is what we need to be pushing for.
Nadine, we got to leave it there. Thanks so much, folks.